Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Corte Madera Planning Commission for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2020. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, nation under God. Sorry.
Liberty and justice for all.
Don't forget that part.
There you go. Thank you. Right. Without standing in front of the flag, I seem to muck it up. Adam, would you please call the order?
Commissioner Metcalf?
Here.
Commissioner Bundy?
Here.
Commissioner Chase?
Here.
Commissioner Bendel?
Here.
And Commissioner Rizzo?
Here.
All right. Thank you. At this point in every meeting, we open the meeting for public comment for that which is not on the agenda. So if you have something to say that's not on tonight's agenda, we'll give you 3 minutes to say so. And Tracy, do you show anyone with their hand up for public comment?
Not quite yet. Let me give everyone a second with the new platform to locate that raise hand function.
Okay.
Do not see anyone. And I'm just going to check our email and see if anybody's in there for anything that is not already on the agenda.
And Tracy, can you just remind people what the email address is for people to send in in writing?
Sure. That email address is publiccomment@tcmmail.org. If you have the agenda in front of you, it's located on page 1 of the agenda in writing. You didn't quite catch that. I do not see any raised hands. Peter? Okay.
Well, we will then close the public comment for this portion of tonight's agenda for those items that are not on tonight's agenda. So tonight we have 2 items on the agenda. One is a application at 17 Tradewinds, and the other is a town hall study session. I would propose that we move the town hall study session to be the first item, and the second would be the Tradewinds passage. Commissioners, do you agree? And you can do so by assent, voice vote on this, I believe.
Agree.
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 All right. Sounds like all,
Thank you.
All are in favor, Peter.
It looks that way. All in favor of moving the study session to be the first item. 17 Tradewinds will then follow the study session. So tonight, Mr. Rizzo, do you have anything to declare regarding this item?
Yes, I believe I need to declare that I'm going to recuse myself from this study session based on my proximity to the project location.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so you can be muted and they'll put you off screen. There we go. So you're no longer visible. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read this business item and then we'll commence the hearing for this. This is the town hall remodel and addition at 300 Tamalpais Drive. This is a follow-up study session to review revised plans in response to comments from the April 28th study session for Corte Madera's town hall remodel and addition project at 300 Tamalpais Drive. There is no action other than public comment and our own commentary for tonight. Mr. Boyle will explain in detail the procedure here tonight and what he has to say about the presentation.
Right, and
Please take it away.
If I may, I'm just going to briefly introduce this. Thank you, Chairman Chase and Commissioners.
Yes.
I'm just going to briefly introduce this before handing this over to Phil and also to Ron Cappy, who's going to be doing the bulk of the presentation this evening. Ron Cappy being the project architect, Boyle, obviously, for the project. And just real quickly, there's much more background, and Phil will get into this in a little bit, but just this is really a follow-up to the April 28th study session that the Planning Commission held, I guess, almost 2 months ago. And at that meeting, we really discussed in detail, sort of, at that time, obviously being right in the midst of sort of the situation regarding the health order and sort of sheltering in place. And so here we are today, sort of a follow-up to that meeting. But other than that, the circumstances really haven't changed in terms of the overall process and why we're moving this project forward. We still intend to, and think it's important to continue the momentum we've built over the last 2 years to get to this point, move it forward through the design review process. Again, just talking about the design of the project. And then really the idea is that we park this project, as I think Todd has said in the past in meetings, at least a year and really assess where we are from a financial perspective over the next year. In addition, we'll also get a better handle actually in the more near term on project costs, but I can say we've also been working to through this process to dramatically or to decrease the project costs. And I think we have achieved some substantial cost savings just in the revisions we've done since December and January when we last talked about a cost estimate for the project. So that's ongoing. That's sort of this where we are. But again, future discussions about actually where the ability to build this project will be had at the town council level over the next year plus. And if changes need to be made at that time based on the finances and sort of the clearer picture we will have over the next year of the financial situation, those changes are still obviously options on the table to be made at an appropriate time with town council direction. So with that, I just wanted to get that out of the way and hand it over to Phil and then over to Ron.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Good evening, members of the commission and members of the public. Yes, as Adam mentioned, this is our second study session on the town hall remodel and addition. Again, no decision is being made at this hearing. This is a discussion item following up on many of the great comments that we received at our last study session back on April 28th. Just want to highlight what was in your packet. And that was, of course, the staff report, which is relatively, brief and straightforward. And then secondly was the minutes and the staff report and the many attachments from our last study session, which was quite more robust and went into much more detail about the project. I talked about the variances. I talked about a variety of different things. So instead of providing, reiterating all that in tonight's staff report, I just attached the April 28th for reference for all you folks. And then second attachment of the staff report were the public comments that were received. And those were comments that were received from April 28th or April 29th to the present. And as all of you know, I deeply apologize for not including Peter Schwartz's excellent comments that he provided to us right after the April 28th study session. I apologize for not getting those into the packet. That was an oversight. I reached out to Peter and apologized. And I do want to let everybody know that we all staff, reviewed those comments and are very aware of them. And as you'll hear in Ron's presentation, we addressed many of them, and we certainly take those all to heart, and great comments, and look forward to working with Peter on the project. And then lastly in your packet was the response to comments, and then the project images, which you'll see, which Ron will present. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Ron. The first couple slides are reviews of public outreach that we've had in the past, but I think it's fine if you want to just talk about those, Ron, and I'll jump in if there's anything to add to that. So thank you all, and I'll turn it over to Ron.
Okay, so Honorable Commissioners, thanks for having me back for another study session. I'm going to share my screen. And start the slideshow. There we go. Okay, can everybody see the slideshow?
Yes.
Let me just work my button here. Yep, okay, we're good. All right, so my name is Ron Cappy with Cappy Architects, consulting architect with my office in San Rafael. I've worked closely with the Corte Madera community and town staff for over a year and a half as a listener, a participant, and an interpreter of the community dialogue that continues to shape the proposal being presented here tonight. The purpose of the project is to provide a resilient and inviting town hall for the town of Corte Madera to serve as a long-term community asset, including the renovation of the existing facility and the addition of a new community room, council chamber, and new administrative offices. We'll discuss the guiding principles that evolve from the community engagement process. You can see the proposed design is 11,871 square feet, 4,350 is remodel, 7,521 is new construction to house 24 full-time employees and part-time and seasonal workers. The guiding principles have been the reduction in building height and bulk, and this has happened steadily through the public engagement process. We'll be showing examples to show how this continues. Preservation, the 3 redwood trees saved as a natural canopy for the community outdoor plaza, meeting civic needs by expanding a community room, council chambers, serving the community by enlarging the public service counter by 3 times its current size, meet accessibility needs with a central lobby, and sustainability goals to meet and exceed California green standards and develop an energy efficient design, and always budget conscious design decisions. To summarize the public engagement process, there were 3 working meetings in 2019, 4 community workshops in 2019 and 2020. We had our first planning commission study session April 2020, and here we are today, June 23rd, 2020, with the hope of a tentative August planning commission public hearing. So we received a lot of excellent comments on April 28th. We received email follow-up. We received documents such as Peter Schwartz's document that was referenced before. And we have tried to summarize these into these main points that we then have tried to address and will have addressed through this presentation. So comment number 1 from many people was about simplifying the new roof to complement the existing roof. So we'll be showing you a simplified roof form with 2 options provided. Comment 2 is to re-examine the glass dormer at the east elevation that we showed you last time, and we have modified and reduced this. Comment 3 was to reduce the ceiling and roof height at the council chambers, and we have done this. Comment 4 was adding windows to the east and the north second floor elevations. This is one of Peter Schwartz's comments among others, and we have added windows, which we will show you. Enhancing the southwest corner of the existing town hall. Peter Schwartz and others also commented upon this idea. Enhancing the southern face of the council chambers. We show you an approach to adding some layering and depth, as well as we pulled that face back into the front setback. Comment 7, adding the cedar accents to the existing town hall for continuity of design. You'll see what we came up with. Peter Schwartz talked about the glare from southern windows of the chambers, so we've reduced window widths to respond to that. Another comment in Peter's document, well written, well researched, was about sustainable design goals. He talked about an underfloor air distribution system, which we can talk about later on when we talk about sustainable design. And in general, we think that the sustainable design goals should be discussed, here by the Planning Commission to see really what objectives we're trying to achieve as a town. And finally, to revise the west elevation, and the west elevation has been further developed. So moving forward, we have 2 roof plans to show you. We thought the best way would be to start with a bird's eye view of the roof, so you can see that it's an L-shaped form over the council chambers and over the entrance lobby area. In this example, we are showing 4 dormers with a gable form. And then to the left is the existing roof, and that is unchanged. The gable roof interacts with the existing roof to kind of blend them together, and you'll see this more in the 3-dimensional images. And 1 single trellis now used for wayfinding to the public service counter. The alternate is we removed 1 dormer at the outdoor plaza area. And we also modified the front face of the council chamber, which you'll see. To take a look at the south elevation, we showed you with a dashed blue line where our proposed roof height was on April 28th, including some of the dormer shapes that we had at that time. So you see that we've reduced the height by 2 feet at the council chambers and reduce it further at the lobby entry circulation area. You see now the south facing windows at the council chambers. We've added wood trim on either side and reduced the width of them. You see a double gable this at the south face of the council chambers. And this is a storage area from a practical point of view, but it also brings the scale down and provides some interest on that elevation. This is a perspective of that same view, featuring the dormer at the lobby that you see through the redwood trees. Reduced south windows, like I mentioned, the dormer at the entry to the council chambers, you can see that, and the double dormer shape that we talked about. You begin to also see on the southwest corner that we have added a detail at the windows that start to coordinate the existing building with the new addition. Another variation on this shows that the dormer at the lobby area goes through and also extends out into the parking lot. So you get kind of a cross shape from inside when you're inside that lobby area. We've also suggesting moving the location of the flags. As you can see, it helps for circulation as the ADA ramp comes off the sidewalk. The tree wells will have a grate on them, so where you see it as an opening, and the skylights that you begin to see bring light into the office area down below, as we discussed last time. The alternate south perspective, you will note, is kind of subtle, but you notice the gable is gone now at the lobby side of the plaza, and the double gable at the south face of the council chambers is also gone. This is the public plaza view with the gable at the lobby and at the council chambers and the trellis wayfinding to the public service counter. The north elevation, opposite side, again, you see where the roof height was on April 28th in our discussion and where it is now. There's been more development to the northeast corner. More windows were added to this elevation per a number of comments. And the stairwell now has been tucked into an alcove. We actually reduced some square footage at the existing building and move the stairway into that area. This now is the section looking inside the building, removing the north facade. What you see as you move into the building, the lobby ceiling has been lowered. The dormer window toward the plaza is shown, so you can see what you get an image of what you see out to the redwood trees. The council chamber roof has been lowered. The ceiling heights are modest. We have 9 feet at the lower level and 10 feet plate height at the upper level. And we show the measurements there. A 3D view of the northeast corner. The overall roof form is stylistically coherent now. Wood trim details of the office windows have been extended around the building. Smaller windows have been incorporated into the upper level, and the northeast corner window has been accentuated. We've added brick at the planter areas to relate to the neighboring fire station, and it also creates a strong base for the building on the parking lot side. We looked at 2 options. We're presenting 2 options at the northeast corner for you. One accentuates the horizontal line where the white stucco that surrounds the windows continues as a horizontal band in option 1. And the option 2 is we then break that and make more of a vertical statement on that corner where you have also the storefront windows on either side. So these are 2 ways that we're looking at the motif for this corner. Looking at the west and the east elevations. At the west elevation, office windows have been accentuated at the southwest corner of the building with wood trim and white stucco finishes similar to the north and east sides of the building, giving this corner more prominence. The east elevation shows the previous proposed roof height and also shows the 30-foot height limit. We are still requesting a variance for the back portion, the northern 2/3 of the council chamber roof that exceeds the height limit by approximately 1 foot. 3D view of that southwest corner shows office windows, wood siding, trim, and white stucco surrounding. The taupe colored stucco is adjacent to the right with the town sign. So those are the 2 colors that well, this is really the color scheme that we've been carrying around the building at this point. Another view of that southwest corner is to strengthen the importance of this corner on Tamalpais Avenue. The existing ramps and landscaping would remain. And then to take a minute to talk about sustainability. Our goal is to meet and exceed the California Green Building Standard. The Green Building Standard has really incorporated many of the original LEED design goals for sustainability. There are a number of these sustainable design goals that can be incorporated into a project at no additional cost. And then there are some that start to add cost. We've stopped at that line where what we're putting in here is things that are cost effective, but also sustainable. We appreciate the comments on the underfloor system, UFAD system. And what we thought we'd do is take a look at probably 3 HVAC systems, ideas for conditioning the building, from a conventional to this underfloor idea, and maybe even radiant might be a competitive price for the lower floor. So we hope that if we make progress at this meeting enough so that we can take it to the cost estimator and start to price out some of these options in terms of energy. The use of energy is a big element. The kind of system that we pick for the conditioning of the space is a big element for the overall sustainability goals. But meanwhile, we know that we're preserving the redwoods, which also have a shading factor. We're doing roof-mounted solar panels. We have electric vehicle charging stations. We have bike parking under the stairs and a shower facility that goes along with that. We have water-efficient landscaping. We will have cool roofs and low VOC materials, water-efficient plumbing fixtures, and storage and collection of recyclables. And we are really open to hearing what the Planning Commission would desire. Our goal is to do a sustainable building. We've tried through the window systems, for example, to address daylighting, to bring as much daylight into the building as possible. So to summarize, the guiding principles that we've been addressing tonight in our proposal to you is the reduction in height and bulk, the successful incorporation of the existing building with the new town hall, highlighting the cooperative effort between the town staff, the town advisors, community participants that has been ongoing for the last year and a half and really has molded and shaped what you're looking at tonight. Preserving the redwood trees as a gateway and a community outdoor plaza, expanding the community room, council chambers to meet multiple civic needs that Corte Madera has, and then enlarging the public service counter by 3 times to better meet the community needs. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to you, the planning commissioners and or the public for questions and discussion.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Can't hear you, Peter, sorry.
Does anyone else on staff have anything else they want to bring to the presentation? No. Okay. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Mhm.
Adam? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So then I'm going to, good. All right. We're going to go to questions then from the other commissioners. So for staff at this point. So Margaret, do you have any questions for Ron or anybody on staff at this point?
I do. Was there any other, was there any other shape of a roof for the older part of the building considered other than the flat roof? Leaving it flat?
Well, we have studied that. I think the concern is more budgetary. And if that's an overriding concern, that's what you're looking at. If we find that we're able to afford to do something, we have studies, but we didn't bring them to the meeting tonight.
Yeah, and I would just add, it wasn't a wholesale revision of the entirety of the roof, but there were, if you noticed, we did look at and integrate the new roof form with the old in one portion towards the northern portion of the existing town hall building. We did look at also sort of a different roof forms and designs more related to the courtyard and sort of the plaza area. So on the sort of the western area or the western facade of, I guess it's the eastern facade of the existing building, but the western portion of the courtyard sort of, and that was really what we looked off. And there were some structural concerns that would, if we did it that way, that would actually cause some potentially more significant costs. And that, so going back to what Ron said there. So, but it wasn't a wholesale sort of take the whole roof off and just reimagine sort of the entirety of the roof, just because that was getting into a significant cost increase.
Does that answer your question, Margaret?
I guess I'll save my comments for later, but it answered.
Okay. Any other questions for it?
And how did that color scheme come about? And how did the color scheme come about?
Well, what we're trying to do is move in the direction of warm tones. So we brought a warm tone to the roof, for example, a warm tone to the to the wall color. We accented it with the white, and the windows are anodized aluminum windows, and then the wood, as you see, is a natural tone. So we were moving towards kind of warm tones, and we were moving towards natural tones.
That's it. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Dr. Bundy.
Yes, I had a question. With the revised roof and sort of south sloping, is there a thought to put photovoltaics on the new roof in addition to the photovoltaics you have on the old flat roof of the old building?
Yes, we've discussed that. I mean, I think it's a matter of if we start to have a capacity goal for photovoltaics, we definitely are set up to add photovoltaics onto the lobby roof.
Okay. The other concern on cool roofs, my understanding of cool roofs is there's significant reflectivity that creates glare potentially for some of the neighbors. Has that been addressed in this cool roof concept?
Well, I think what you're talking about is the cool roof that's extreme white or a light gray, which are most efficient cool roofs. What we're looking for is obviously a shingled look that still has the ability to reduce heat island effect without reflectivity.
Okay. I think the interest has been enhanced in the old building on the south and the west facade of the old building. I think you've created more interest with accenting these windows. But was there any thought given to just maintaining the facade of the existing west portion of the building and the south portion of the old building? It has a certain quirky charm to it as I look at it. It's not Frank Lloyd Wright in the Civic Center, but it does sort of reflect some of that 50s era design motif, I guess. And was there any thought to maintaining that so that you could maybe maintain that one ADA parking spot that's out there and continue use the existing ADA ramp to the main counter?
Well, to catch your last points first, our intention is to continue to use the ADA ramp in the ADA spot. There is a door back there, and it also will tie into the ramp to the public counter. There's been a lot of thought about the existing building, and we understand the references, the Wrightian references from the time that it was built. And the question is whether you leave it as a standalone or you try to incorporate it. What we're showing is the idea of trying to incorporate it into an updated theme. And on the other side of it, we didn't want the design features from that time to necessarily dictate what we're doing for the rest of the building. So it's a conundrum, but we've definitely been talking about it the whole time, and we respect, what we've got there. And let's just see what the direction that the discussion goes in.
Okay, yeah, the thought that I had was that because it's somewhat isolated from the other building through the plaza, and it's a sort of a prominent part of the old building, that those two facades could be left alone. And I was also suggesting that the existing ADA ramp could be continued to be used with access to the central counter and the main area that we've created, and not do an additional ADA ramp at this time. But I was seeing it as just leaving it as a standalone and unique part of the Corte Madera history that would be designated as such with a plaque. And it could be that in the future, as more space was needed in the old building, things would need to be changed and incorporated into the design of the existing building that gets built.
I could make a correction. So the existing ADA ramp it may have been installed the standard back when it was installed. It doesn't meet current standards. So as part of this building, if that is where we are going to dedicate the ADA, it would need to be modified. But I think more likely we would probably put the ADA parking in the back area and have access to elevators. But either way, and those options we can further consider, no matter what, it will comply at the time of project completion with all the ADA standards.
Okay. Those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Phyllis, please let me hear your thoughts or your questions for staff.
Well, actually, I wanted to respond to something Bob said first, because from a design perspective, I like the idea that the old building is coordinating with the new building. I think it brings it all together, and that it's important. I like the changes that have been made for that reason.
We'll get into
As far as
comments.
any questions, well, since Bob had brought it up, I wanted to mention it while
Okay,
it's on my mind.
thank you. All right.
The cedar paneling, my assumption has been all along from what you've said, Ron, that this is natural cedar that's being used and it's not manufactured wood, or is that correct?
Well, we want to get as much as natural a look as possible. My preference is always towards the natural wood. We have to look at the life cycle in some cases. So there may be some situations like around the cornice, say, of the existing building where we might need to move to a more sturdy material if it's more subject to south-facing light. But as much as possible where it's shaded and protected on the north side and under the redwood trees, absolutely, that's our intention.
Good. I like that idea. The more natural wood we can use, the better. And of course, it has to be maintained and takes time. And that's just about all the questions I have at this point. I would like to hear at a later point as we discuss it further, the radiant heating, the radiant and the OFAD and whatever, I forget the third one was you mentioned, that for you to discuss them more thoroughly, but I don't think this is the time.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to that. Ron, in the new plan, I wanted to ask you, did you allocate a space for the generator out there?
Yes, we did.
Did I miss it?
Want to see where it is?
Yes, please.
Okay, just bear with me. Let's see here, right there. So if you look at, can you see, is my cursor actually show on this?
Yes.
Okay, there's a utility room and we brought the generator inside of a utility room that's below the south wall of the council chamber. So that's where we've located it.
Okay. I'll have some questions about that to you that are more extensive, knowing that that's where it is. Okay. This is a couple of questions. Has anybody brought up the idea of how we're going to view video in the council chamber and so forth? What's the appropriate locations for that and so forth inside of that space? How to utilize it electronically?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say excellent question. It's definitely part of a solution. Let's take a look. We have little windows along the east side. We have brighter but muted glass on this side, but muted because of the trees. We've got a flat screen area, which is right now behind the council chambers. We also have a videographer in this location and a lot of wall space back here as well. So I think we've got a couple of options to look at when we get to that point of studying it more deeply.
And for staff in general, besides you, has anybody done sort of a power demand study for this, a very basic spreadsheet of how much this building might demand for power, and that would go against the size of a solar system? Has anything been done yet in the power demand?
I don't believe we've actually gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, right.
Jared can speak to that a little bit more, but obviously that's
Okay.
something that we would focus on in the next phase of design work.
Well, it sort of leads into the follow-up question whether this building is considered to fall as new construction, or does it fall into the remodel category? Do we have to comply fully with the new the 2019 code? Or
Right.
where does it land?
The new conditioning is for the new building. The existing building has its own conditioning right now as a partial answer. Peter, you brought up this idea twice now, which I think is important about the energy usage. I think depending on how this meeting goes, we want to take it out to the cost estimator, and that might be a good time to also do that study that you're talking about.
I think, just Peter, and maybe Ron, you can, one of the questions, I think it's a good question is, and I don't know the answer, but maybe Ron, you do, but given the fact that in essence, I believe we're trying to create essentially a new portion, entirely new portion that's joined but has separation. Would the building code consider sort of these almost as two separate projects where everything that's basically outside of the footprint of the existing building would be considered new construction under the 2019 building code, and then the existing building would be a remodel, and those rules would apply there, and how does that work, I guess?
For example, to just elaborate, we have a seismic joint. We're planning on a seismic joint right here between the existing and the new. So that's one structural separation. We also have an existing utility room right here, and the roof form that we brought over the top for the lobby, from the lobby, creates an attic space. So if we need to supplement the utility that's existing, we thought it could go right there. And then the rest we showed you we were going to feed from down below. We have the ability to have soffits to heat and cool from the side here as well. And then possibly from this same roof attic space, we can then also bring heating and cooling in this direction. So that's the basic strategy that we have.
And if I may touch on the potential for additional solar panels, additional feedback would be helpful whether we should consider the south-facing roof form or not. Some might view that as a trade-off for aesthetics. It's kind of, I think, in the eye of the beholder, but obviously it is a roof area that could be served with solar panels if the goal is to maximize photovoltaics.
But I think Dr. Bundy was talking about this as well, that we have this right now.
Yeah, and
what we're showing on the flat roof.
Ron, I was actually thinking the one facing the firehouse is, I thought what Bob was raising the point on. Yes.
East facing.
Okay. I will just leave some other commentary for later. With that said, I'm just going to check with the other commissioners. Any further questions for staff before we open it up for public comment?
Not at this time.
All right.
Peter, I think you brought up the issue of the generator, and looking at that location, it seems like the ability to replace the generator would be extremely difficult. Can you explain how the mechanics of, say, getting a new generator in when you needed to do that would how that would take place?
Well, that's an excellent point. In the scheme that we had on April 28th, we actually had an open area right here where the generator could be pulled in and out. We've gone ahead for aesthetic reasons and closed that down. Depending on the size of the generator, this comes up on all my projects. I'm doing one up in Truckee right now where we're sizing the door for that potential that you're talking about, where you have to replace the generator. So Right now, we have an access on the outside, we have an access on the inside, but we have 2 closet spaces right here that certainly could be reconfigured if that becomes the issue in design, where we can be able to pull that generator out of there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So thank you for all of that information. All right, so at this time, Tracy, are you ready to open this up to public comment?
I am. For the attendees, you should find a raise hand icon either at the top or the bottom of your Zoom window, depending on your device. And again, that email address, if you're having trouble with the raised hand, you can send an email to publiccomment@tcmmail.org. Give everyone a minute to locate the raised hand. Do you see one already? And
do we want Tracy to, I guess we'll do the reading, or maybe it's a question for Peter. We also had some late arriving emails that we would read into the record as sort of the desk items as well. So
Absolutely.
Peter Chase, we can do that either to start or to sort of at the end of this public comment period.
Well, let's see, we can go through emails at the end, and as that often happens, there might be some more people who figure out how to raise their hand. So you do have some hands raised at this point, is that right, Tracy?
I do have 2 hands raised at this time.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then let's proceed at your direction.
Lucinda Smith, if you're ready, I'm going to allow to talk, and if you've muted yourself, you'll need to unmute as well. Go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for a good presentation and all the explanation. I did have a couple of questions. Since this is a town building, I'm not understanding why we need to have a shower facility. I think it takes up space. It seems excessive for having a shower where it's a work environment, and it takes up not only the space but increased costs. The other thing I was wondering about is the solar panels, and if I understand the drawings, they are all located on the flat portion, which would be the old building. And I'd like to understand, is that correct, or are they going to be putting any of the solar panels on some of the shingled part of the roof? And lastly, I'm a little confused about that. It looks like a big spread upside down V between the flag posts and the, I think what's the council chamber area. And it's in some of the drawings, but it's not in all of the drawings. And then I think I heard that that's where the generator would go. And how big is that space? And is that really the place you want to put a generator in the front part of the building? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucinda. We will answer questions at the end of the public comment section as best as possible with the responses from staff and Ron. Who else do you have, Tracy?
I have Eli Beckman. Go ahead, Eli.
Hey everybody, this is Eli Beckman. I just want to say first that I'm speaking in my capacity as an individual resident and nothing more. But I just wanted to say real high level, fantastic work here. I had some concerns about the first iteration that we saw at the last public workshop. I think this is just leagues better. So I want to give a huge thanks to the whole design team, staff, and all the residents who really helped shape this project and move it forward to where we are today. Huge thanks, really appreciative. This looks fantastic. The one little specific thing that I was just curious about, I was wondering if we took the cedar siding that's around a lot of the first story windows and applied it around the second story windows, those narrow vertical second story windows where it looks like we've got some sort of like stucco kind of control joint thing going on. I was wondering if we basically applied the cedar siding in there. It might be a nice visual tie-in between the first and second levels. So just something to think about there. That's all I've got to say, so thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Okay.
We have, I'm
Any
sorry, I don't have,
further?
yes, so I don't have a last name, but we have Steve. Go ahead, Steve. May need to unmute yourself. Maybe we could come back to Steve.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, yeah, Steve Hoffmeyer from 146 Willow. I just want all you guys to know that the neighbors are kind of rallying, and we're looking and getting counsel, legal counsel, to challenge this. I've spoken many times before. This whole project's way out of scale. We're even wondering why the old building isn't scraped, and why we aren't discovering other options like the post office. And there's even been talk of taking down the old rec center because that doesn't have proper earthquake size and structure. So just want everybody to know that people are concerned about the parking and the noise, and why it really has to be at this location. This is the oldest area. If you went into George's office in the Treasury section of the old building, and you looked from Palm Hill, it was our houses here on Willow that were the first ones here. So we're all wondering why you aren't trying to preserve the old town, and instead of ruining it by putting this monolithic building where there hasn't been parking served. We haven't heard anything about parking, and now you're talking about putting in generators. We already have issues with noise here with the post office, and now there's been more talk about the liquor store having improper generators. So want everybody to know that I'm glad this is just a meeting, because we are going to try to rally and oppose this, and rightfully so, because this is the oldest area and there are a lot of other options. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Tracy, do you have any other hands up?
I do. I have Peter Schwartz. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you.
Yes, Peter Schwartz, 381 Chapman. I'm very appreciative of the redesign. It's a very attractive rendering and design elements versus the first go-round. And very pleased to see the new design going. And in terms of other specific comments, I think we should think about the opportunity on the existing to not necessarily settle for what's in that portion of the building, but take it as an opportunity during bidding to get new technology into that portion of the building, so you don't have mismatched cousins from the new and the old. And then relative to the shower, things like that, I'm very supportive of facilities having showers because it encourages people to ride or run to work rather than take a car. And it gives them a place to clean up before their work day. Having spent 10 years on the Planning Commission, and many of you know that I did, one of the problems with looking at renderings is we always have this godlike view of the building as opposed to the pedestrian view. And, we use that for looking at construction elements, but it gives a misleading feel for the bulk and the mass of the building. And I think in this particular design, the massing has been improved substantially. And we never have that full sweep of the whole building as shown in the drawings in real life. And I think one of the things we talked about was possibly doing some pedestrian views using the software. And then a couple comments, things regarding generators. Obviously, generators are only used for emergency situations and are not meant to be run for hours and hours during the year. They're not designed for that. And so I think we have to put things like that in perspective. And with that, I just want to, appreciate the effort that the architect did in responding to public comments.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay.
Who do you have next?
I have Michael here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh,
That's not working.
no.
Michael,
Stop
there
that.
seems to be an audio problem there. Try it again, I think. You want to try that again, Michael? I'd be happy to read
Still
your
not
comments
working.
if you want to send an email to publiccomment@tcmmail.org. I can read them aloud for you. I'll leave his hand up if we want to come back to him after I read some of the emails that have come in.
Sure. Okay, so if you don't have any other hands up, please go ahead and start to read the emails.
Let me verify we don't have anyone else here with a hand raised than Michael, and we can come back to him if that's okay with you, Peter. I have two emails new during the meeting, and I have some late comment that was sent to us prior to the beginning of this meeting and after the packet. Do you have a preference to go to first?
Let's start with after the packet and then during the meeting.
This is an email from Michelle Miller, dated Tuesday, June 23rd, 6:24 p.m. It says, "Thank you for the updated information and continued community engagement. I have a question regarding the slides presented in the Town Hall project plan set. When I view slide number 6 and number 14, which is south elevation and south perspective, it doesn't appear to mirror slide 10, public plaza. The roof appears significantly lower in number 10 than in slide number 6 and 14. Please speak to this discrepancy. I would like to see an updated view of number 10 and with a transparent view of redwood trees. Thank you, Michelle Miller."
Okay, Ron, you'll answer that. Do you have that question down?
I have that down. I don't see the number. I know the general, the general concern.
Okay. All right, we'll get back to that then. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure you had that. Okay.
I will
Next email.
also forward that to him.
Okay, great.
Second one is from Susie Beatty, dated Tuesday, June 23rd at 5:52 p.m. Hello, planning commissioners and all. I'm impressed and thankful for the comments and recommendations of Peter Schwartz, document attached. His suggestions offer enlightened added possibilities regarding the new town hall plan. I encourage you to look extremely closely at his ideas and remain forward thinking in regard to the issues he brings up. If we do this, let's do it once and do it right. Thank you. Thanks to each of you for all you do, Susie Beatty.
Okay.
This is from Glenda Corning, dated Tuesday, June 23rd at 5:34 p.m. Hello, I've just read Peter Schwartz's enlightened comments and suggestions about the design elements of the proposed town hall expansion. How fortunate we are to have a man with his experience and depth of knowledge from our community who is willing to be of assistance. I find his ideas to be thoughtful and progressive. It is an insightful comment to note the challenge that glare and backlighting in the council room might present. I also really appreciated his comments about the air ducting system and the benefits of allowing more personalized control of work area climate. In this time of COVID, I think it is important to consider and maximize the flow of fresh air. I also think the addition of windows on the second floor would be smart for the provision of light in the event of power failure and would certainly enhance the look of the building as well as add cheer to the interior. Mr. Schwartz's comments about designing for future energy needs and requirements seem prudent and wise. We should plan with a mind to our future challenges in energy, public health, and for an effective emergency response in times of crisis. I hope you will seriously consider his thoughtful and well-written analysis in your planning. Thank you, Glenda Corning. The last I have is too long to get through in 3 minutes. I just want to note for the public that all of these late comments are posted to the town's website under the archive of late public comment for the Planning Commission, and additionally posted on the Town Hall project webpage. Peter, I can read through some of Peter Schwartz's document, if that's helpful.
I have that in front of me.
It is about 10 pages
Yeah.
or so.
13 pages. I think we should read that, and you can start with his comments regarding second floor. I hate to say it, we can probably skip the background and move directly into his commentary.
Okay. This is entitled Corte Madera
I'm
Town.
happy to, let me know if you want to tap out and
Okay.
I can read some of this too if you're getting tired.
Okay. This is entitled Corte Madera Town Hall Addition and Remodel from Peter M. Schwartz. Second floor comments. The northeast corner of the addition should have windows to provide daylighting in these rooms, particularly in the bathrooms, so that they remain functional during times of emergency or power outages. Additionally, windows would be useful with proper shade controls in the meeting room area for daylighting, energy efficiency, and for emergency situations, i.e. power outages. Windows in these areas can easily be placed to prevent privacy issues of surrounding residential properties on the north side through existing trees, though existing trees provide substantial coverage. See Google Maps photos below. Again, this document is posted on the project webpage for this project on the town's website. The existing office comments. The west elevation is exceedingly plain. Adding 1x6 cedar siding wrapping around the windows on the southeast corner of the existing office would add much greater architectural interest on what are currently very bland surfaces. Sustainability. The town of Corte Madera and the Planning Commission should also consider designing flexibility into the building that has been described as a resource for the town for the next 50 to 100 years. As such, the town should embrace a code plus philosophy first, versus an existing code minimum approach. The standard argument usually given for minimum standard compliance is cost effectiveness. This eschews perfectly viable new technology approaches that will future-proof the facility for what will be changing electricity market conditions and more stringent GHG carbon emission policies. Several areas relative to this context are discussed in the sections below. Renewables, PV, solar, and battery storage. Importantly, the town should embrace net zero design construction energy carbon practices that include appropriately sized PV solar battery storage systems capable of handling the building's projected near-term and long-term needs. There exist numerous business models that would offset additional capital expenditures that may represent an obstacle to adopt these practices. Additionally, when performing financial analysis for this project, the town should include long-term operational costs, keeping in mind that California electricity rates are moving towards mandatory interim time of use, or TOU, and then dynamic real-time pricing regimes. Marin County is actively promoting community scale microgrids, and this facility should be looked at as a distributed energy resource or DER asset that is microgrid and smart grid enabled, not a static standalone building incapable of actively communicating and functioning within a larger grid. Costs associated with incorporating this level of functionality can be subsidized through a variety of different mechanisms not discussed in this document. Note, I would be happy to detail them later with staff at the request. Lighting, electric and daylighting. As shown in sections of the southeast corner in council chambers floor plan, the council chambers will be extremely problematic to illuminate without causing excessive glare due to the very high ceilings and the structural construction. That brings me to 3 minutes.
Okay. That's very good, but that's a good preview of the rest of the letter. I hope people take the time to read this, and we will take up a couple of those items in our discussion after we are through with public comment. Okay. At this point in time, do you have any other hands up for public comment?
I do have 2 emails within the last 10 minutes. And I have 2 hands raised. One of them includes Michael, who had a little bit of audio trouble previously.
All right, we can try Michael again.
Ready. Go ahead, Michael.
I think we're having a Bluetooth or some kind of connectivity problem, so it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not getting audio from you, Michael. Yeah.
He needs to send you an email or something. It's
okay.
I suspect it's our friend Michael on the hill. Okay.
And then I have an additional raised hand from Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Hello, can you hear me here?
Yes.
Hi, this is Dan Phipps. I'm at 477 Chapman Drive, and I have just a couple comments, and I apologize for coming in late in this process. And it's hard for me to understand all the things that are going on in the building when I look at these things on the computer. I'm old school, trained as an architect, and am actually practicing as an architect. Anyway, that's my best way of seeing things. But one thing I look at is there's this building, I see it wanting to represent our town and being the most efficient building in the world, or in the town, and being very functional and very practical. I also hear the neighbors, concerned on the north side of this building and how this interfaces with them. So I want to raise those concerns and see how this building can be efficient and be the most energy efficient. And people are talking about photovoltaics, and at the same time, they're asking about saving some redwood trees that are on the south side of the property. And in the process of saving those trees, you're actually going to be cutting off the available power that you can gain from the sun. This property is really situated in a perfect location for gathering sun. But I believe when you do that study that's going to be coming up in the future, you're going to find that there's going to be limitations on where you can put the panels and the kind of efficiency you can get from those panels. I think, again, that the form of the building can really respond to some of the exposure that could benefit this building for gathering energy. And I think it should be one of those things where I don't know that we need a plaza per se, though I like how it breaks up the building from a mass standpoint of view. But I do see the building wanting to be an efficient building that you could bring people to tour and see that how efficient a building can be to collect the water that comes off the roof, to collect the energy that could be gathered from the roof, to have the function that needs to be happening within the building and such, and sharing the light and having a scale to the neighborhood that would be a benefit for all in the neighborhood and a role model to all in this community and for wherever else. I think there's just opportunities here to make something spectacular and not just be something that's just a sort of just a quick pass of a committee putting everything together, just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I think that the holistic look at this thing would be really a beneficial thing to have taken into consideration. And basically, that's my comment. And again, I'm sorry for coming in late. My wife found about this with one of those things on the billboard that was on the town rec center a while ago, and then all this COVID stuff came along, and I'm just not that good at looking at things in the computer. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Phipps. If you can hear me, I would suggest you sign up for the town newsletter to your email. That would help. Okay, Tracy.
Okay, we have no additional hands raised from our attendees, but we do have 2 emails to read out that came in a short while ago.
Okay.
First is from Werner Mawson, dated today at 7:51 p.m. Dear Planning Commission, thank you for the opportunity to give feedback. Please excuse the brevity and format of this series of comments and questions, but it is driven by the nature of this Zoom format of meeting and typing as a means of semi-live communication. I missed the beginning and most of the presentation. This would be late in the evening due to the agenda. The street elevation of the council chambers is very weak. A second lower open gable roof over a bay with a blank wall, that's a question. Two, the lower level of the new addition requiring skylights and a plaza above. And in parentheses, he has water protection. And the fern garden, another question mark. This seems very strange orchestration of stacked levels, which seems difficult to rationalize. 3, the connector portion of the new structure, the portion between the existing building and the council chambers, could be a flat roof allowing for more solar panels. More comments to possibly come this evening. Thank you, Werner Mawson. This email is from Dave Kuhnhart, dated this evening at 7:54 p.m. He says, Ron is really listening, thanks. Question, could you please recount the capacity of a large public volunteer space, which you have been calling council chambers? Size, seating capacity, and ceiling height. Thanks very much, Dave Kuhnhart.
Okay. So
no additional raised hands, Peter.
No additional raised hands and no emails. I will close the public comment section for now. When we get to the end of this, we'll see what else has come your way. But for right now, we'll close the public comment section and go back to staff and Ron to, as best he can, address these comments if he's been writing furiously, to be able to address all this stuff.
Take it from the top.
Yes.
Excellent comments. Okay. Lucinda Smith was asking about the shower facilities, but I thought Peter Schwartz answered that question. It's when you have people exercising or riding bikes, this came from LEED originally, that you would also provide a shower facility. The shower facility is, we redid a bathroom that's existing in the existing building, and in order to allow people to then, here's where they park their bikes. So that's where that came from. It's not trying to be an extravagant gym or anything like that. It's more of a health concern for people that are exercising, either coming to work or at lunchtime. Solar panels, well, that's also been discussed. And I thought Dan Phipps brought up some really good points about it. We need to do a shadow study with these trees, because he's right, Dan's right. If we are shading this area, then solar panels here are not effective. So in general, what we tried to do for schematically is put them away from the tree shadow so that you could get maximum efficiency of solar panels. And that's why they ended up being here. So there is a direct conflict between the shading and this roof form or anything that the shading of the redwoods would touch. There's also potential, as we've seen in a number of situations, of putting solar panels in the parking lot. That's removed from tree shading, and that could be, much more efficient as well, depending again on how many panels we need and the power demand, as Peter brought up. Okay, the upside down V. Let's see if I can get to that. Yeah, okay. So what we have on the upper floor is chair storage in here. What we have below that is the utility room and the generator. So we're not trying to put the generator into this narrow little space. We're putting all utilities down below. So if you looking at the floor plan, sorry for jumping around, just trying to. So here's on the upper level, we have the chair storage. To answer a question that just came in, and we're about 900 square feet. This was David's question, and we're seating 95, up to about 95 here. So that's, I believe, double capacity now. But anyway, chair storage here, so we have a flexible space. And then down below, this is that area that's, half of it's buried 5 feet into the ground. That's a retaining wall here. And so this is where the generator would sit. And as was pointed out, it's an emergency generator. It's not something that operates on a regular basis. It has to be serviced on a regular basis, but it's really for those emergency situations. So those are Lucinda's comments. Eli Beckman brought up the idea of
Ron, just to stop, there was, I think Lucinda did have a question about there's two different versions of the sort of the south elevation of the council chambers and / volunteer community room. So
we were showing those as alternate ideas.
Right.
This is what we call alternate south perspective, where we don't have that inverted V, or we are calling it Christmas Tree Hill and Mount Tam. But this would be still, we'd have the storage, but you wouldn't have that articulation. So we have a flatter wall here as an option. We understand that it's a different look. So this is one with that, dormer shape. So we were just saying, do you have a preference? That was the idea there. Was there anything else?
I'll just add, Ron, that was a direct response to a comment. There was a comment that said, add something to that southern gable, and so that's what we chose to add. So this alternative provides, the extra gable near the flagpoles, and then the extra gable, total of two gables facing the plaza. And the other alternative is no gable at the flagpoles and one gable at the plaza.
Okay, should we move to next comment?
Yep.
Yes, please.
Okay, the next comment was from Eli Beckman, who brought up the point about what about cedar siding up here? So what we have is, these are 18-inch wide windows right now. We have, he's exactly right, we were showing control joints in the stucco that are, that pick up the lines of the cedar. It's entirely possible, especially on the north facing, to put wood there. So we're open to that suggestion. Should we move on?
Okay, yes, please go on to Mr. Hoffmeyer's comment. He's on Willow. If you can address any of his comments.
Well, I can address it as somebody who's been involved for about 1.5 years listening to the discussions, but really it's pretty much out of my bailiwick. But why the old building isn't scrapped, this has been brought up a number of times, and it's I believe there's financial obligations that the town has to keep that building rather than demolish it. Parking, we addressed that at the last meeting. I did not bring the parking slides, but Parking and noise absolutely are important concerns. There's an EIR that's being worked on that, where these kinds of things would be studied.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, there is a CEQA document that will be coming out in the future, and that will come before the Planning Commission in the formal Planning Commission hearing, and that will be at this point it looks like it's going to be a mitigated negative declaration. So that's the CEQA document that will come out, and again, we're addressing parking as we talked about before. We began a parking study in about March, and then that had to be put on hold due to COVID-19, and there wasn't a way to model parking since no one was coming to the building. But we are certainly we'll keep an eye, being aware of the parking situation.
Thank you, Phil.
And I just, some of the other comments were from Steve Hoffmeyer were about why this location. And I think we've done a lot of work on that in the past. We had a working group last spring that went through those actually, I guess it was, I think it was late winter, early spring last year that went through that very question and talked specifically about other options for another locations, but ultimately through really a sort of opportunity and constraints sort of analysis, focused on this as the most practical, cost-effective, and really also sort of consistent with the town's policies from the general plan perspective as well, sort of the location that we should focus on. So there are a number of reasons. And through that, I think we also fully recognize that there are neighbors. This is there are residential properties immediately to the north of the building. There are residential neighbors to the south across Tamalpais Drive, and have been really trying our hardest to recognize that and sort of adjust the building to make sure that I think one of the first comments was, make this feel more like it fits into a residential setting, and especially from Tamalpais Drive, I think we've focused on that and talked to the neighbors on that side, and also as on this side, the north side of the building as well, thinking about privacy and really reducing the height as much as really can be possible while fitting in the program that is needed for this new facility. Thinking about parking and those other things. So we're always, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to Steve and other neighbors, the Malins, and talking about how to address concerns that they may have in the coming weeks and months ahead.
Okay. Mr. Schwartz had a couple of comments. Perhaps you can address some of those and keep going.
Yes, okay. First of all, we definitely read over his comments post the last meeting. Very excellent, a lot of experience to bring to bear. I myself am a LEED accredited professional, so when that conversation is to be had about how we can maximize sustainability, I'm right there. I'm very interested in that, and hopefully can bring some things to bear as well. I wanted to, while I'm on the section, Peter had talked about an underground heating and cooling system that would be located where I'm showing the cursor. I have done this, I did this with a Novato project, and that's when the earth was kind of sloping away and we had a void already. I believe to do what Peter's suggesting here would be to dig down deeper, so there would be some cost involved. We have, and nevertheless, it should be studied. Radiant flooring would sit in the slab and heat the immediate space. We have the ability to run ductwork in this location through the floor joists, through the floor package. We have the ability to run ducts here and here, and also in this zone. This is that attic space I was talking about. So I believe it's an energy study problem. It's an energy efficiency concern, and we're trying to give you the best bang for your dollar, obviously, on that issue. As far as bringing new technology into the existing building, wholeheartedly, we're actually bringing the new IT room is in the existing building, so all wiring will be actually circuited if we stay with the idea that we have now from there. So the possibility for rewiring and or wireless is definitely up for discussion. There's one, I thought Peter made an excellent suggestion about providing pedestrian views, and that it also responded to a question that's going to come up in a few minutes about trying to understand what is, a person would say, what is my experience? A citizen says, what is my experience of this building? What we've been looking at is a 3D model. So all there is no alteration of the model size from view to view. We certainly could show and would like to show pedestrian views. We also could show interior of the building views. So we have the ability to show whatever views are required to help describe the building. We're on board with that one.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely necessary, and we will do that. Just for the sake of this meeting, we didn't want to. We had actually some more pedestrian-oriented views at the last April 28th meeting. And since we were focused mostly on responding to comments for this meeting, we didn't want to do additional work and time and energy on additional things that weren't specifically addressing the comments received at April 28th. So, but absolutely, I think it's a must for a public hearing on any, just like we do with other projects. We would have those images for the community street views and for the commission.
Okay. Great. Do you feel prepared to move on, Ron, to Dan Phipp's comments?
Well, Michelle Miller had some comments about the South perspective.
Oh, yes.
And I thought those, that is kind of what we've just been talking about, is the ability to visualize what we're showing you. So this public plaza dormer over the council chambers is the exact same dormer that we've been showing you in other perspectives. So we'll do what we can to try to explain it the best we can, but there was no alteration between, say, a view like this and the view that where you kind of see it over here now. It's the same model over here. So I think this issue of getting the proper views so that people can understand it is, we would like to take anything that you have on that so that we can do a better job of that.
And I think she was also just commenting on maybe the roof appears significantly lower in 10 than in slides 6 and 14, which might have been that other option. And it was hard for her to see through the trees that the difference in the roof forms that were being proposed. But yeah, that's slide 2.
That one and that one. But I think maybe it's these ones where you were trying to show that the trees are there, because that's an important factor. Yep. We could show it without the trees, as well. That's
okay. I think that's responded to it.
But I understand the concern, and really we have that same concern to communicate.
She's actually maybe. Do you want to go to her? I see she's raising her hand, Tracy. Do you want to just? This is Michelle actually, maybe live. I don't know, Peter, if you want to do that. Or...
Sure. We can do that if we're on that. It's a little unusual format here to begin with, but if you want to let her in, yes.
Sure. I have just one short emailed comment while you all were answering some questions, and like Adam said, one raised hand. So if that's okay, I will.
To Michelle Miller, we were just talking about Michelle Miller's comment.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, the view that you're showing is different than what's on the website. The website, I realize now through the course of this meeting tonight, that it appears that the plaza view is actually the more accurate one, but the other ones I referenced don't look, yeah, that I think is the accurate one that you're showing currently. But on the website, there's a much higher roof line on this perspective. Yeah, that's not what's on the website. That's not what I see from the public view. So just so you know, the public view, I wish I could, let's see if I could quickly take a screenshot. I don't know.
All right, cool.
Yeah, slide 14 of what's on the website doesn't even show the gables. It's much higher.
Is that the old plan?
Maybe I don't know. That just went by email to what was sent to me. So as a, I don't know what's accurate. So I'm guessing the public view is the most accurate one, because before the meeting tonight, I went to, I referenced the emails that were sent to me, clicked on the links, and that's what I saw. So.
Is it possible she's looking at the original view, that those plans are also in what was mailed out tonight? Before these changes were made after April 28th, that could be the difference in the roof height.
All right, we'll try to.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll follow up with Michelle and get that information.
Thank you. Okay, Tracy. You had an email.
Second. Thanks for your patience. We have an email from, follow-up email from Werner Mawson, dated this evening at 8:32. Planning Commission, the front of the council chambers is most important as to the character and gesture of the building. The critical design of it and the opportunity it presents should not be limited to a choice between the two very weak options shown in this PowerPoint. On another note, many of Peter Schwartz's offerings and those of Dan Phipps this evening should be taken seriously. This project should represent the very best message and implementation from the town as to our challenged future as to sustainability. Thank you, Werner Mawson. Follow-up email from Peter Schwartz, dated this evening at 8:36 p.m. Hi, it's directed to staff. Hi, Phil, it seems Ron Kappa might be confused by my comment regarding exploring UFAD systems. It doesn't involve digging deeper to locate the system. Instead, you minimize or eliminate suspended ceilings by adding a raised floor that becomes a plenum and also a convenient place to run all the utilities less expensively than standard construction. Additionally, reconfiguring spaces in the future is much easier to accomplish with this approach. Best regards, Peter Schwartz. And one last comment from Michael Harlock, dated this evening at 8:37 p.m. Since I wasn't, it seems Michael had audio trouble previously. Since I wasn't able to participate audibly, here are some fundamental questions. As you're aware from my recent communications, I am opposed not to the credible architectural solution, but to the land use concept. 1, who finally authorized a program that more than tripled the size of the existing town hall? 2, has there been any study of how the proposed complex should be phased, which will be necessary post-COVID? The extremely complex solution makes it appear to be very difficult. 3, are we content to leave the tarted up existing building, the most visible portion of the property, in perpetuity? Thanks for your consideration, Michael Harlock, AIA.
Okay. Thank you. What I'd like to have you do, Ron, is we'll come back to that. Go back to the commentary in order as it was received. You did address David Kuhnhart's, and then there was Dan Phipps' commentary, if at all possible, to address him.
Well, Dan Phipps, he talked about I referenced him already in terms of the redwood trees versus the photovoltaic placing. I thought that was a good point. Limitations where you put the panels, collecting water off the roof. We do have a definite idea about that. So he was basically talking about, to me, Dan, I think you were talking about best practices. So our idea is to collect the water, and we have, we're conducting it to bioretention areas underneath the plaza and to the north. So as far as demonstration project, we would be happy to have this be a demonstration project of water usage, water management, some of these ideas that you were talking about. Taking a holistic look. I mean, I think that's a discussion. This is what we're trying to do. And part of the holistic look, I believe, is the community participation, all this comments that we're getting to try to, you know, package this together into something that, you know, people are talking to us about. Was there a, Peter, was there a specific item that I missed from Dan?
Well, he had some general comments, and I think that I think your plans speak to them, but he did talk about scale, and he talked about opportunities. So it was a viewpoint of, you know, how to wanting to make sure that this got represented, or the neighbors got represented to the to this project. And he talked about the form of the building. He didn't see a need for a plaza, perhaps, and he talked about a opportunity to examine the scale of this building.
Those are mostly comments, right? Yeah.
So they're comments, but they're hard to address, and I think that
well, I mean,
they can stand for themselves.
He had mentioned that he was coming in late to the process, so we discussed some of the rationale for the plaza last meeting as a way of unifying the functions of, you know, the administration building, the community room, council chambers, and the public service counter, as well as creating a public amenity for the community, and really making the redwood trees a kind of a centerpiece gateway. So those are the ideas of the plaza. Whether or not you want it, you know, that's what we're talking about. But it seemed to be an idea that was that's been popular for a while.
Right.
And if I may, at our community workshop, we had a sticker exercise, and those were definitely priorities of those that attended. And so that was an exercise that, you know, showed a positive light on all the plazas and some of those features.
Thank you. Yes. There was 3 other letters: Susie Beatty, Glenda Corning, and there is Warner Mawson's commentary.
Right.
Yeah, I think we've addressed those Susie Beatty and
yes,
Glenda Corning ones. Just
right. I wanted to acknowledge them.
I thought that Glenda made a good point about maximizing the flow of fresh air. She mentioned COVID-19 and the need, and I thought that was really a wise comment. It's something that in terms of a number of air exchanges, things like that, that we should be looking at. I thought that was a good point.
Okay. Can you address Michael Harlock's commentary? He says, how did we get to 3 times of this, you know, town hall project size? Can it be phased? And I can't recognize my last sentence for his 3rd commentary. Perhaps somebody else can.
He said charting up the existing building.
Yeah, right. So you got it. You can respond.
The existing building, I mean, this is actually what we were doing on that southwest corner, was a lot in response to a letter that Michael wrote. So that was an effort, Michael, to respond to you. Apparently you don't like it, but this is what we were trying to, you know, we're trying to listen to you on that. In terms of the use of the land, I know, Michael, you were involved from the very beginning with those discussions about where we should put it. And so I don't think it's, I mean, so you have that position. I understand that. I respect that.
Oh,
In terms of the sizing, this is something that evolved. Maybe some of the planning, some of the town staff could speak to a little bit more as well, but we began to look at enlarging the council chambers in the existing location, and there were some structural issues there. The idea of if we're going to build something new to make it usable for multiple future needs. So that's how the council chamber came into being. We knew we had to address ADA access needs with an elevator, and so we came up with a central core with this lobby to enhance circulation. The deficiencies at the permit counter, I think the town people are aware of that, so that's why we enlarged that area. So those are some of the criteria that came in, and these again are through community discussions that we had for the last period of time.
And also, this is RJ Seco, Public Works. I'd like to just mention we have our temporary portable trailer that's the bulk of Public Works is in, and that's a separate structure now that should be considered when you look at the overall size and need for the town. But as Ron mentioned, the council chambers, the permit counter are, probably on the smallest end, and all of them are in. And I think it's going to serve the community better to have those larger facilities. Just an example of that, when we had the PSPS last year, it was, shoulder to shoulder with people using the current council chambers for tapping into Wi-Fi and charging their cell phones. And it was really a nice community feature to have, and I see this being even better if we have those events continued, where not only can you charge and use Wi-Fi in the council chambers, now you can sit out in the plaza, and that speaks to also potential for adjusting to COVID and charging using Wi-Fi in an open air. I see those all as benefits.
Okay, well, thank you very much, RJ. Do you want to add anything else, Ron, to the responses that you have in front of you?
I think those are my notes. Oh, well, Werner, yeah, we can still study that south face. I agree that it's important. He didn't like our solutions. This is a group discussion.
Yeah, we can try to get recommendations from that. But the only other one was, I think David Kuhnhard asked about the height of the council chambers as one of the dimensions.
Was it the height? Okay. We spring to 10 feet. I think we go 10 feet up to 15 feet now. There we are. 19'8" to the peak, to the outside peak. So about 18 feet high at the peak.
And then
10 feet high at the walls.
And the idea is with the truss system was that you actually view through them. They're not, right?
Right, these would be open.
Open truss. Okay.
Okay.
I think we got all the questions.
Adam or Phil, do you have anything else you want to add before we go to commissioners?
No, I don't. I think Ron, personally, Phil, I'll let you add, but I think we went through those very, very thoroughly. So I don't have anything to add to those responses.
Okay. Nothing more from me.
Okay. All right. So then I'm going to take it up to the commissioners to respond. So I'm going to start with Phyllis Metcalf to comment on what she sees here and what she hears.
Okay, I really like the improvements on the design. It was a good looking building before. It's a much better looking building now, and you've done a wonderful job, Ron, on addressing the concerns that were brought up in April and yet keeping the building true to its original design. If I can ask a couple of questions. One of the things that Eli mentioned was about the possibility of adding the redwood siding to the upstairs windows. And because the color of the stucco is different, it's the darker stucco is on the second floor where those windows are. I think the differentiation, I would not add the cedar. That would be my preference. I think the way it is would work. If the whole building was painted the white stucco, then I would agree with Eli on that one. The plaza that a couple of people questioned and the use. I think the plaza is very important for a couple of reasons. It breaks up the bulky looking mass of the building. Besides the usability of the space itself, but from a visual and design standpoint, it keeps it from looking at, I think somebody talked about the big scale of the building, but it is really beautifully broken up by the plaza that's fairly, in the center of it. If you could show, rather than that one, if you showed the one that shows the wide expanse to the right, if that would work. I just think that breakup. I also think because of the plaza and the way it's separated, that the flat roof works on the old building. I wouldn't think about, even from a design standpoint, as much as a cost standpoint, I would leave that. And I do like the way you have put, worked up things on that corner of Tamalpais, and I guess it's Willow. I like the design. It follows through with what we're seeing on the new building. It ties things together and it works. I mean, you not only want the building to be functional, we think about form, and this form works. And I think, it's come a long way from some of the original things I've seen. One thing I would like a better description of, and I missed the third one. There was the radiant heating, there was the UFAD, and Ron, you mentioned there was a third variable, and I don't remember what it was.
It was just a high efficiency HVAC ducted system.
I mean, I know things have certainly changed since I was a youth, but I did live in a home at one point that had radiant heating in the floors, and I'm sure it's far more efficient today. But you either had these very warm spots you were stepping on, and where there was furniture, and here there would be a lot of desks and chairs and cabinets and stuff with blocking the heating, which makes the areas where the floors are bare even warmer. That I don't know how efficient it really is. I mean, I think it takes a lot of energy to create this radiant heating, which is not viable in certain sections of the floor that are covered. But from what Peter Schwartz has explained about the UFAD system and this, what he mentioned after you talked about digging deeper in the ground, his variable that he mentioned with his second phone call tonight.
But he mentioned that you could move up from the floor and create a space.
Yes.
So that would, we're at 9 feet now, so that would tend to raise the profile of the building. So that would be a trade-off there.
Okay. I see. Okay, so your recommendation to the staff, council, and commission would be to go with what you have put together so far. Is that correct?
And we could explore that UFAC in this story here, see if there's room.
Okay.
It does give you flexibility. He's right. So we could see what we've got here, but it may make this a little thicker.
Okay. But you can have a combination of systems.
You could have a combination of systems.
Okay. Now, if you were going to do a combination of systems, going back to one that shows the roofs. Okay, there's another one that, okay, that's better. You had all the photovoltaic cells on the flat roof.
That's what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And someone, and I don't remember who, talked about the problems with the redwood trees blocking it.
Right.
What is it possible when you're saying you combine systems of putting some cells on what is on my far right, the part of the slanted roof that's close, that's right, closest towards the firehouse, etc. Could cells be put on there that would work with that section of the building?
We could definitely study that and see, you know, the level of efficiency that we could obtain with that solar orientation.
Yeah. Because obviously the redwood trees wouldn't be in the way, and off the top of my head, I forget what direction that faces in.
East.
East should work with east, because that's morning light
sun.
sun. Yeah, that should heat it up during the evening. But that's just about the comment I have now, except as I think I've already said, I really like this design. I like the way it has evolved, and it looked good before, it's gotten a lot better now, and I really compliment you on being able to bring in all of these comments that are made from the public, from the staff, and from the commission into creating this. So congratulations on that. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do from the comments made tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Dr. Bundy, I'd like to hear from you.
Ron, I think you've really made some nice design changes. You've integrated the roof line. I think you've simplified the plaza, made it, I guess, less cluttered, and it looks really nice. I think the plaza is an important concept to tie the buildings together, and just an important community asset for those that are visiting the town hall. I like the addition of the smaller upper windows. I think, as Phyllis said, they seem to fit in nicely in the design element with the two different colors of stucco back there. The south facing exterior of the council chambers, you know, that some people have brought up as trying to be more interesting. I don't know if there's a possibility of doing some type of public art that could go on that wall that would create some interest, and, you know, have something that we could be proud of there. But overall, I think you're really going in the right direction. I like things.
Yeah, the public art, we have discussed that. I've been involved with projects that have the, you know, there's a 1% art that sometimes it's done as a separate RFP for artists. Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea.
Peter, if I may, if we want to keep it simple, why not just use the symbol of the town?
I was going to say there's this bird.
Yeah. And
So
do
we can
that,
do that.
rather than do a mural type effect and
Right.
just keep it.
Right.
I think the simplicity of the building is really to its advantage.
Right. That's a symbol that we can't live without. Okay.
There it is.
Margaret, I'd like to hear you back there.
I guess I'm going to disagree with what's been said about the roof. That roof is really bothering me. It doesn't seem to, the flat roof and the peaked roof, it just doesn't seem to relate, the two sides of it. And at least if the peak were to be brought to the edge of the building, at least it would incorporate the whole building. It's kind of cut off there without, at least from the top view, to my mind, without a rhyme or reason. And it just makes the old building look like the poor stepsister of something new and different, and as if we ran out of money to finish the roof to the edge. That's just the way I see it. It's really kind of bothering me there. I do like the double gable. No one else has commented about it, but I do like the double gable in the front and the back a lot. The other thing that I'm kind of wondering about is that brick around the front. In this view, you can see around the curve at the base of the building, it looks like there's cedar. And then it looks like the plaza is either cement or slate.
Tile,
like there was
some kind of large scale tile.
And this brick brings in, I'm not hearing that, but the brick brings in a whole different element, and it also brings in a whole different color. And I just really, I think if it was a cement or the slate or the cedar, it would kind of coordinate better with the rest of the building. I also, I don't know if the comment that Eli made was exactly the way I'd want it to see it, but I think if there were more elements that sort of, there are a lot of horizontal elements here. And I think that if a few more verticals could be emphasized, it would sort of make a better balance. It just sort of right now looks like a stripe, a horizontal stripe around the building. And I'd like to see just more of the vertical emphasized. And I think that's what I have. I do think the plaza is really important. I think Peter said last time, after meetings, people, come out and like to gather and kind of talk about what went on at the meeting. And that's another reason to have the plaza there. But anyway, those are my feelings about it.
Okay. Margaret, thank you very much. So it's my turn here. I will contribute some things. Going back to Lucinda's comment about the shower, we have a shower in our office. People ride their bicycles to work all the time. It's very important that people are able to refresh and then report to work. Showers are a necessity, I think, for that purpose. When it comes to the comment that Eli made about cedar siding going up, I think that the way you've designed it, Ron, is the best way because there's a hierarchy of size that you have there with the larger cedar pieces on the bottom and then the narrower, smaller windows on top. And I think that when you look at, for instance, Town Center, that as you go up, the windows get smaller. And I think this effort to minimize the vertical height and create the horizontal bands of color actually contributes to keeping it from seeming too tall. So that's my commentary about the cedar and the height and all of that. I think that this is effective at establishing two different levels, and I think it makes for a building that seems less imposing. That's my feeling about it. I would like to say in general to the public that I wish that people would subscribe to the town newsletter that Rebecca puts out. It is so easy and you get so informed. And anybody who's late to the process, who gets email, and I don't know of anybody who doesn't get email, if you signed up for it, you would hear about all of these things. It's really easy to do. I would encourage that. And maybe the towns could put up on the electronic billboard, sign up for the town newsletter. That would be a big bonus, I think. I think that the town plaza is a place that we need. We don't have one where people can meet and congregate. whether there's a meeting or not. I think that that's an important place to be in emergencies or not. We don't have a place where people sort of plunk down that is the town. So I think it's really important before meetings, during meetings, and after meetings. I think it is important also at those events. I think that it'll be a lovely place to corral people, and when there are emergencies, I think it's just going to prove itself invaluable if we ever get this thing built. I do want to say that I think it's time for this energy study. When I'm designing or working on a project, I will start to create an electric draw for this, and then this with the shading study and a solar company to provide an estimate of what the solar panel need is. And I don't know where we're going to fall in the new California Energy Code, and the higher solar panel resource that we have, the better the building will perform. Nobody said anything about battery backups. You know, they can run power at night when we're not, you know, at a meeting at night. It's already somewhat dark out here, so the batteries would be running the lights in the building for all meetings if we had those. It is an outlay, of course, but you know, it would bring the net zero closer for the building. I think that the plaza has to have bike racks in it. The bike racks down below are not very inviting for people. I think we got to put some bike racks up in the plaza. I think that's a mandatory thing right now for people riding down Tamalpais. They want to pull right up and walk into the chambers. I think that it's hard for everybody involved who's been with this project for the last year and a half to have commentary come in now that is somewhat agitated and doesn't know the history of what was considered. And I think it's difficult to honor it in the right way because so much has already been thought through, and here we are at a point where this commentary is coming in, and the response is, if only they'd been here a year ago or commented on this. And it's not for lack of outreach that we've tried to get people involved. So I dearly wish people would avail themselves of the town's resources to be a part of these projects. I'm just going to say that I think that you've come up with a really nice design, Ron, at this point. I don't know that the added dormer on the south side of the building and inside the plaza is necessary for a high glazing thing there. I think on the north side it will add light into the building, but the south side will just be a heat sink, I think, in there. And you know, I think it's a expenditure we probably don't need, but I think that the cedar around the building is very useful in creating a warm tone building. What those materials will ultimately be is yet to be determined, but the coloration is great. So I think that with radiant heat, I just wanted to address Phyllis's commentary on that. Radiant heat is now extraordinarily efficient, and it is probably the best way to heat a building. My only question of staff is, how much AC do you guys use? Because that becomes a separate system that goes into the building. But radiant heat is very cheap to run. But if you're going to be ducting air conditioning into the building, then you know, you might as well be ducting heat in as well. So I think a study has to be performed to understand what's the right single source system to have both heating in radiant and forced air is gilding the lily a little bit, but we know there's going to have to be AC, I think, for this place. So I would like somebody to examine that in the overall picture of the energy use of the building. Those are all my comments. So I think it's a great project where it stands, and you know, I think if it came before us as is, I would make some modifications, but not at this time. I think it's a great project. So,
Peter,
Tracy.
I have one more comment. Can I make it?
Sure,
I
let's go ahead.
work for the county. Okay. I work for the county, and we have, in the office, we have both open space and closed office spaces. And the county now, in dealing with COVID and social distancing, is really struggling with the open workspaces. And so putting up plastic to keep people separated and not breathing on each other and social distancing. And I think that somehow when the inside starts becoming more of an issue, you have to think about how to, I don't know, maybe have movable walls or make it so that people can be separated, because otherwise, in my office, the people that work in open workspaces are wearing masks 8 hours straight a day, which is not a good idea for anybody.
Yeah, as am I. Yeah, thank you for that. There's a fair number of offices that are single-use offices. I don't know. This is a problem that has to be addressed. How would you respond to that, Ron?
Yeah, it's so interesting that, you know, offices were trending towards open spaces for the last 10, 15 years. And now we are faced with the situation that, you know, Margaret brings up, which is a very real one. Let's talk about partitioning. I think it does fit into the whole airflow question. And we are, you know, providing operable windows, which definitely helps the airflow. And you mentioned the AC question, so that we're not reliant completely on, you know, a closed system. But I think it's time for that discussion.
Okay. Well, let's see. Ron, you've got quite a gather. Go ahead, Adam.
Sorry, Peter, I just wanted to know, we do have a couple of more. If we want to take, I know we've closed the public comment portion, but given sort of we're on this platform, I think there are a couple of more comments have come in, or so, and somebody has their hand raised. If you wanted to take those just for the sake of rounding out tonight's meeting with the public comment aspect.
I think we can do that. We're running long here, but let's go ahead and take those, and then we'll close out this item on the agenda. So Tracy, have at it.
Thank you. Peter Schwartz, I'm going to unmute you. Go right ahead.
Great, thank you. Just a very quick comment regarding the underfloor. One of the advantages I tried to sketch out was that the way the system works is you have a raised floor and your overhead plenum is smaller or eliminated. So your floor to floor height remains the same. You don't necessarily have to do that. The other advantage is that it provides much better ventilation for the occupants, because you get stratified air where you're always getting fresh air from below, and it's ducted above. So you're not getting that mixing that would occur. So in the era of COVID, it's a much healthier solution. And with that, I'll finish my comments.
I'm going to propose that we schedule a meeting here, Peter.
No problem.
Thank you very much. There's another comment.
There is one short email follow-up from Michael Harlock that I'll read, dated today, 8:55 p.m. It has not been my position to remake the existing building. My suggestion, when funds are available, is to raise the main floor of the existing after a simpler two-story office building is completed, what we need most next to it, and then construct an inspiring new council chambers on this, the most visible part of the site. I wish people involved would read my communications more carefully. We are spending very much more than is necessary for this project and still have a banal box left on the corner. Michael Harlock.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael.
Peter, may I ask you one question before we go on?
Sure.
It's something you brought up. I'm looking here at this picture of the plaza, and you brought up adding more bike racks in the front of the building. Now, the bike racks in the back at this point.
Yeah, the bike
And I'm
racks are
wondering-
downstairs.
Or downstairs. Where would you put the bike racks in the front without ruining the line of the building?
I couldn't say exactly, but maybe up against that fence, maybe not there, but to the right side or up against the fence of the front of the plaza between the redwoods and the, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly, but to ask people to go downstairs to park their bikes and then come upstairs. Yeah. I think they should just ride right up to the front there and then go in. I wouldn't know where to put them exactly.
Yeah, I just would not like to see it interfere with the lines of the design. I mean, I know it's important to find a place to park your bike and to be sure it's safe. I mean, that is very important, but if we can find a place where it does not interfere with the design, I'd like that. Okay.
Then just remind, so I think what would be helpful for staff is just to get, an acknowledgement of the process moving forward. I mean, our goal really would be to move on from this meeting based on what we've heard tonight. There's still obviously some more work to do, but we feel we can do that within the scope of sort of moving into actually the project application, the environmental review, and then come back to the commission with actually a public hearing on the project itself. And the entitlements associated with that. So that would be sort of the direction we'd like to hear from the commission, obviously, but in either way, that would be what would be helpful for us to hear from you as at least from the majority of the commissioners.
Well, I will say that three of us certainly feel that the project has developed nicely. I will allow each of you to speak, but I think that it is at a point where, from my perspective, we could go forward. Phyllis, what are your thoughts about that in response to Adam's question?
I would like another study session. I think enough comments have been made tonight about some are small, some are larger changes to be made, some ideas that have come forward. And I would like to have more discussion and more time for the community to give some input. Yeah. I think the more we can do working on this beforehand, there was a man, I wrote his name down, Steve Hoffmeyer, who called, who's already talking about getting local counsel. I would like to see us responding to as many of these things as possible without ending up with having people who are disgruntled who are wanting to hire attorneys.
Agreed.
Yeah, one more meeting discussing it is not going to stop the world.
Right. Dr. Bundy.
Yeah, I think great progress has been made, and I would like to see the progress go forward. I think we're close enough on this that I could see coming back with a final design on it. I do have one question, because we understand that things will be put on hold once there's an approval. If it was 2 years from now and the money was there or a grant was there to go forward with the building, would we bring it up to just take a final look to say, is anything changed in 2 years that we would want to modify? Is that something that might happen?
Typically, it's not. I mean, it would be design review permits typically last for 3 years at the maximum, and so that's well within sort of the time period within which those are deemed to be still valid given the existing conditions after that amount of time. Obviously, this is something that we wouldn't go forward with. There'd be discussions at the town council at that level, and maybe changes that would be necessary that would require to come back to the planning commission, or we'd want to come back to the planning commission if there were some changes to the design. But no, I would say unless the commission wanted that additional process for that would not be something we would recommend doing. And I also, I just want to make the point that just because of, a public hearing doesn't mean that there's one public hearing. We've had many times where we've had several public hearings to get things right. And so I want to make that clarification between the study session process and the public hearing process, to Commissioner Metcalf's comments, that just because we go into a public hearing process doesn't mean that it's that there's only one meeting. We can continue meetings, we can continue to have the discussion, but at least it allows certain things like the environmental review and other aspects to move forward. So from staff's perspective, I think we feel from what we've heard tonight, we can definitely address a lot of these questions and a lot of these comments and still have meetings with some of the folks who commented tonight to make sure we get things as right as possible. But that can be done within sort of the project application phase of this, in our view.
So I'm fine with going ahead with public meeting on this for approval, and recognizing that, as you say, it may take a couple of meetings to get a vote of final approval.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Margaret, your thoughts about moving forward?
I think as long as the discussion remains open to some degree, we should go forward and get some of the studies that you suggested, Peter. But I also would like to see some of the pictures, or someone suggested pictures from the ground up, from a somebody on the ground floor's point of view, and some of those other sort of mock-ups of what the building would look at, not from the top down, from the bottom up. That they would be very helpful, I think. So
Okay.
yes, I think we could go ahead as long as discussion remains open and we look at the roof.
Well, that would,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, that would be leaning toward another study session, I think, what you're saying, and rather than a formal application.
Oh, I guess so, yes, then.
Okay, thank you. I think that a final study session could be warranted. It does seem like that there's a few tweaks that would normally be put in during a formal application. And to your point, Adam, we could have multiple hearings with that, that the idea would be we would not ascertain to move it forward and approve it in one hearing, that it might be open to multiple hearings. I'm not quite sure where it stands on the architecture side, how big of a leap it is from where we are to a presentation, formal application. Does this feel like you're still somewhere between schematic design and design development, or do you feel like you're firmly in design development at this point, Ron?
No, we're not in design development yet because the engineers haven't really been activated on the project. Yeah. If we do some of these studies, they'll be kind of finishing off the schematic design portion by studying some of these engineering issues that have come up. So let's say we're at the end of schematic design.
Right.
how do you feel you are ready to move forward or not, or how much would you want to round out this process of incorporating commentary and addressing any of these issues?
Well, I mean, I think one of the more interesting ones is about energy usage. Some of the comments back and forth in discussion forum with Peter Schwartz, to really take a look at that idea, which has a lot of positives about the underfloor plenum, and see if that affects the height that we've got right now. I think that's something of interest to us. And then looking at some of the energy models that you've been talking about, so that we have some idea from, on a growth scale of how the building would function. And then, you know, if I feel that we're at a point where we could go get another cost estimate. The last cost estimate was about a year ago, and it was a different building. Times have changed as well, so we could get that update between now and the next meeting, if you'd like.
If I may,
yeah, go ahead, RJ.
Seco Public Works. I also, you know, I know there's been a lot of discussion about this other type of HVAC, and I just want to say we could also look at cost analysis on just digging. You know, I did a kind of back of the napkin calculation. It's not a tremendous amount of dirt, so that's also an option, and it wouldn't require the building to raise an elevation, and it's possible it still could be cost effective to add that treatment. So I would explore that a little bit, and as part of, you know, what we present on the next go.
I think just from, sorry, Peter, but I just want to, you know, from the perspective of what we are looking at, how some of these things, these internal changes in the workings of the buildings might affect the exterior, and things like the height or some of the elevations and whatnot. And those are the things that are obviously relevant to the design review process in terms of the exterior elevations, the request for the variance, the condition, you know, the permits that we've actually are going to be part of that application. The conversation, though, will not stop there. From actually how the interior of the building lays out, as you're saying, you get into a different level of design in terms of the technologies, the electrical, the mechanical, all those sorts of things will then go into a different discussion, and as well, we'll be talking about costs with that, with how to make this work, or can we make it work with the town council. So, you know, we're not going to be at the point of sort of too far down the road by the time we're sort of asking the commission to look at the design review application and the variance application and whatnot. So I just want to, you know, to the extent that those affect the exterior of the building, and obviously we are hearing all the comments, so we want to make this a sustainable project. So we're going to get the energy studies done that you've mentioned. But I think, you know, those things can go on and on and on, and we will do those. I just want to try to put a finer point on sort of the design review and the variance process, and sort of try to see what that looks like in terms of the end of that process versus sort of getting into a next level of design. And I think we're pretty close. And so either way, whether we come back for another study session or whether we develop the application, I think we're going to get to a point where we need to sort of understand and put the brakes on from a standpoint of the design review process, and then move into the next level of sort of cost estimates and what may need to be changed or what have you. So anyways, I know that was a little bit of a rambling, but I just want to make it clear that we don't want to get into all sorts of the interior and technical aspects of the mechanical systems if they're not actually affecting the exterior of the building.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Peter, I would just that it's pretty unusual. No project is typical. Every project is unique, and very, very rarely do you do more than 2 study sessions for a project. And I agree with Adam. I think we've handled a lot of the exterior stuff, which is mainly what the Planning Commission is looking at. And I don't see a tremendous amount of exterior changes that will result from exploring various HVAC systems. And I don't see significant changes exterior happening with the as a result of the CEQA document either.
Well, yeah. And of course, also the
Okay.
commission has there's conditions of approval that often speak to some of this stuff as well. But anyways, you heard from all of us now. Yeah,
so I think that, in tonight's packet was an example of the required findings for the project. And I think that I only have a little bit of a dilemma in my mind between what another study session offers and the fact that this ought to be in an application at the next go round. I think that it's almost as if another study session would be a little too much information, and I don't know how much change there would be. I think Ron's got his hands full now to convert everything he's heard into a good application. And I think what would come out of this would be a really good application at this point with the information he has and the due diligence that staff has to do and he has to do in order to determine what the energy approach is for this building. So that's where I stand, is I think it ought to move forward into it.
Peter,
Phyllis?
if we met as a commission on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month, having another study session sets back this train by 2 weeks. There could be a study session and then 2 weeks later, the meeting that Adam wants. But I think it's very important that especially the community gets a chance and feels that they had their input and were listened to create this quote unquote final design that the application is based on. We spent what, 2.5 years on the hotel, which we ended up saying, forget it. So it's not like we only have 2 study sessions on things. A project like this is important enough we could take the time to be sure that everyone feels comfortable. There are always going to be people who have complaints, but at least let's try to meet the comments made by people who are trying to positively move this forward.
No, I agree 100% with meeting those, addressing the comments and concerns and continuing to evolve with this project or have the project evolve. I do want to make it clear though, and this is another reason why I feel it's important to move into the public hearing process, is because we shouldn't be making the decision about whether this project is acceptable or not at a study session. It's really actually just to provide guidance to develop the application. The study session, in fact, we can't get, there's a fine line between giving too much actual approval of a project in a study session versus just providing the guidance and letting actual discussion about whether the project should be approved happen at the public hearing, which is actually the formal process by which we're required to, notice and hold the hearing and actually have the debate and have the commissioners make the findings or have a discussion about whether the findings can be made at those meetings. And so that's another thing that I feel like we don't want to be sort of making the decisions at a study session because
I'm not saying, Adam, I'm not saying we make the decision, but going back, Ron, go back to the page you had before showing, no, the one before that, here. How you responded to the comments from the April study session, showing the comment, showing what was done and stuff like that. I think we could do one more go around on that. Enough people called in tonight or sent emails that they had concerns or recommendations, etc. And I think they could be addressed the same way as Ron did here. I assume it was Ron. I don't know if staff was involved in this too. And taking the comment and responding to it as it might respect the design, because that's what we're involved in. And then 2 weeks later, after we have those addressed, 2 weeks later, go to the hearing process you want to follow through on, Adam. As I say, it sets back this timeline by 2 weeks, but don't forget, when we finally come to the end of it, it's going to be put on the shelf for at least a year or more. So if it goes on the shelf 2 weeks later, the world won't come to an end.
Okay, very good.
Phyllis, it wouldn't, I appreciate your thought that it's 2 weeks, but it's not 2 weeks. Once he gets comments and to turn it into an application, it's much longer than that 2 week period. He's got to do a lot of work
by
after
a
that.
couple of weeks. But don't forget, we are still saying that nothing is going to happen for at least a year to 18 months until we find out where the economy is and the effects of what has happened due to the pandemic. It's not like anybody has to break that ground before the rainy season, per se.
If I may,
I think that, go.
Can I jump in? Yeah, I mean, we want to respond to the commission and the public and be very sensitive to all that. The team has worked pretty much continuously since the last time we had a study session. So just want to, shed some light that there's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into this. And, Ron doesn't work pro bono. He's doing a great job. I think we're getting a lot of value out of him, but there's a cost component as well.
So at this moment, we've got 4 commissioners on the screen. And if I ask people to raise their hands for another study session, I'd say that we have 2 commissioners that would put their hands up and say another study session. Is that correct, Margaret? Oh, you're muted, Margaret. Margaret, you're muted. Margaret, you're muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're muted. Okay. Margaret, can you hear me? Okay. If you want another study session, raise your hand. If you think we can go to application, shake your head. Okay. Yes, but you are muted. All right. So that would make it, I believe, Bob, you would vote to go forward to an application.
Yes.
Okay. So that would give us 3 to Phyllis, that we would say, let's move this into an application. So I think that's where we stand on an informal basis.
Okay, thank you. And I think I just want to be abundantly clear that does not mean we're by any means not stopping to work on all the comments and concerns we've heard tonight and do all the studies and additional work, and that there can't be additional public hearings and when we come back for a public hearing. So for all of those that are listening, for the Planning Commission, this is still part of the public open process. We're still taking all this feedback and going to make this project as the best project we can. So and for all of us. So anyways, thank you.
Okay. So here we are at a moment, it is 9:37, and we're going to close out this item and move into the next one, but I want to see if the commissioners want to take a break here for 5 minutes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we'll come back at 9:45. Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
I think Tracy can do it. There she goes.
Oh, I'm unmuted
Oh,
now.
Yep, she got it.
Okay, there we go. Okay,
Add my,
we're all unmuted. So at this moment, we have to take a vote whether we will continue with a new item after 9:30. Is everybody in favor of that to finish this meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's affirmative. So with that said, I'll introduce this item. This is a new hearing for 17 trade winds in Corte Madera. This is a design review application PL number 2019-0071 for a 769.5 square foot second level addition to an existing single story home at 17 Tradewind Passage. So, Mr. Boyle, you have your name on this.
Yes, I do. Let me get you to share my screen. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. Try this. Second, while I'm looking, Tracy, do you know my applicants there?
We have a Chris Stone and a Lynn attending
Great.
with us. Chris has his hand raised. Want me to have him speak?
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure they're there.
Okay.
While I try to share my screen.
There you go.
Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Make it bigger. Is that better?
Yeah, maximize the window fill and then hit the PowerPoint show button to fill the screen.
Got it. Slideshow. Okay, how's that?
Cooking with
Good.
gas.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is a design review application for a 769.5 square foot second level addition to an existing single family home located at 17 Tradewind Passage. In the slides. Project location. The project is located in the Mariner Cove neighborhood on the east side. It is a subdivision that was constructed in the 60s and 70s, predominantly single-story homes. Project summary, the existing home is just over 2,000 square feet with the proposed second level, the adding approximately 700 square feet for a total of 3,089 square feet. Both these numbers include the garage. Existing height is 15 feet. Proposed height is quite a bit below the maximum at just under 24 feet. The existing FAR is 30%, and they're proposing to max out the FAR at 40%. The second story addition is completely over the existing single story home, so there is no expansion of the footprint, and therefore no expansion of the lot coverage. This project conforms to all R1 development standards, setbacks, height, and no variances are requested. This project is in the FEMA floodplain, and so the applicant provided staff with an appraisal of the structure as well as a detailed cost estimate of what the project would entail or cost to construct, and it was significantly under the 50% maximum or the 50% threshold that's required for FEMA to raise the building. So these folks the project is not required to be raised per FEMA, and the applicants are choosing not to raise the building. In terms of neighborhood support, as you saw in the staff report, I provided all the letters or the signed form letters from all the folks in green. that are shown here. The project is the one with the red dot. The one to the right, 21 Tradewinds Passage, was the woman who had some concerns regarding views and had some back and forth emails with the applicant. She and I corresponded as well. And she and I corresponded yesterday via phone. And I walked her through with it. She understood that the one window on the east elevation will be a bathroom window that will be frosted, and that will be over the toilet. And after our conversation, she has no problems with the project. She supports the project. I did ask her to email that, so you had it in writing. Unfortunately, she did not respond to my email, but I'm quite confident that she is okay with the project. She's seen the story polls, and I think the applicant could probably speak a little bit more to that as well. So just to give you a site plan context in terms of proximity to the neighbors, this just shows the project in the center. Gray area is the second story addition. Obviously, the project is closest to the neighbor to the west, to the right, who provided a letter of support. Again, in this case, almost the houses are so close that, and with the second story above, you're almost too close to look down upon the other on the other one. There was some, as you saw in the packet, there were some communications between the folks to the back, which is the north. And in response to that, the applicant has revised the rear elevation, and I'll show you that, how they changed the windows back there to minimize privacy impacts, I should say. Proposed first and second level floor plans. The one on the left is the first level floor plan. Mainly the stairway is changed and the entryway is changed to create that second level. The green circle just indicates where the second level is being placed. So they're placing it over there, over the existing bedrooms. It makes logical sense in terms of where to put the stair. It makes sense in terms of if they were to move the addition over to the right, move the green circle over here, then you'd have to remove or change these high ceilings that exist in these two rooms. So that's another reason they did that. Also, plumbing, bathrooms on top of bathrooms, those types of things. Visuals of existing and proposed south or front elevation. Again, putting the building over the garage, or behind the garage, actually. 3 windows for the bedrooms and bathroom in the middle. Removing this gable over the front door. Modifying this porch a little bit. The front door actually gets shifted a little bit to the left, opens up, makes the porch a little bit bigger, and so on. Existing proposed north or rear elevation. So this illustrates what they've done. The original plan was actually to have the back elevation pretty much have these types of windows. And after talking with the neighbors and realizing the privacy impacts, they revised those windows. Instead of 4-foot sills, these are approximately 6-foot sills. So 6-foot sills, clear story windows, operable. So they're going to get the light and the air, but they're not going to be able to look down unless unless you're 7 foot tall or greater. That's pretty much the only main changes to the rear elevation. Existing proposed east elevation. So this is the view of the resident who was in the blue square, who I had the conversations with, and didn't get a confirmed written response. So again, she and I sat and talked about this elevation. This is the window that could potentially be looking into her yard. Again, it's probably it's this distance away, quite a distance away from her home. And again, like I said, it's a frosted window over the toilet of the master bath. and then existing proposed west elevation, 2-bedroom windows, looking over, and I'm sorry, my PowerPoint slide got shifted up, so you can't see the existing very well. It got shifted down, but this is the proposed west elevation. Sorry about that. Why did that change? This is showing some sections, showing how ceiling heights, how the sections work with the dormer that's jutting out towards the front and the rear. And then just here summarizing the analysis that project went through in terms of design review findings, studying the natural light and shading. As you saw in the packet, there was a shade study was provided. There will be some at certain times of the year, like almost all second story projects, will increase some of the shading. But in reviewing it and talking it with neighbors and staff does not feel that it's a significant impact on shading to adjacent properties. Privacy, as I talked about, has been mitigated with changing of the windows, locations of the windows, and then consulting with the neighbor to the east, who is now in support with that bathroom window. And in terms of views, the potential main view would be neighbors to the south or to the north, which are quite a ways away, and well over 100 feet away. Certainly the folks across the street. And there are no, in this particular location, looking north or south, there are no, significant views of Mount Tam or any other mountain or hillside. You're basically looking up up towards San Rafael or back towards, towards Tiburon and the hills, Ring Mountain, I should say. So that really concludes my staff report, able to make all of the findings for design review, and certainly welcome any questions that you have. I believe on the line is the project applicant, the architect, and perhaps one of the homeowners. Thank you, and I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, Phil. I will go to the commissioners and start with Phyllis to see if she has any questions for you.
No questions.
Okay, Dr. Bundy, do you have any questions for Mr. Boyle?
Just one, I guess, sort of technical. Understand why it's not required to raise the house, because they had previously done an addition that increased the square footage and the value of the house. So this addition is less than 50% of the total value. So I understand that. But is there a difference in the requirement for fire sprinkler system as opposed to, this 50% for FEMA and raising the threshold?
Yes. Yeah, the fundamental difference in fire versus FEMA is, FEMA is wanting to make sure that when you add on to this house, you're not creating a significant loss for FEMA if this place gets flooded and they need to pay out. So that's why they're worried about dollar value. Fire department's worried about surface area and the ability to require sprinklers. And so the fire department says, if you're touching more than 50% of the walls, and you have to talk to Ruben about the details of what touching the walls means. But that's fire department's criteria of when they need sprinklers. So it's FEMA is 50% of dollars, and fire is 50% of surface area or wall area.
Thank you. And I also had a question. Is there a framed north wall already in?
The framed north wall, in the rear wall?
Yes.
Yes, I mean there's this wall here, so this is the existing north wall. This new wall will fall on top of it. And wait, let me double check.
Phil, what I believe he's asking is that out there on site, it appears that they framed a wall to demonstrate window openings. I think what they did was they built a wall out there that shows the window openings. It's not actually going to be a wall that is structural enough to be a part of the addition, Bob, but I recognize a mock-up when I see a mock-up, and it's a mock-up that they made to understand the window implications in view from the neighbor or of the neighbor. So that's, I saw the same thing and thought, they framed the wall? That can't be. Then I got a better look at it and realized it's mock-up.
They had a very energetic story pole contractor, and no, they actually did that specifically to be able to show the neighbors to the rear, this is how the windows are going to look, and now we're cutting them, you know, in half, and so they're just showing them that the improved reduction in privacy.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right. So, Margaret, do you have any questions for staff here?
I don't, no.
Okay. Mr. Rizzo.
Yeah, I was just, since I'm pretty new to this process, I was wondering if Mariner Cove had a design review for the neighborhood. It's a pretty old neighborhood, but some of these planned unit developments have additional requirements before they come in.
No, they don't. No, it's not which is, yeah, usually a planned unit development. Some of our newer ones like Madera del Presidio.
Mm-hmm.
That's a newer one that has more of a, you know, succinct design. But no, neither the east or west flatlands of Corte Madera have design review requirements that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Design review consists of Bob running around looking at it. So, just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So the applicant is on the line somewhere.
Yes, they are.
So,
and before I pass it over to them, I just want to mention I do have the infamous color and materials board is here. So if anybody wants me to FedEx that to them, I can do that.
And I also, Chairman Chase, we got to do another majority vote to extend the meeting for a half hour beyond 10 p.m.
Time is clicking by.
Okay. I would vote to continue. Who else will vote to continue?
Continue.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So the applicant is online someplace. I don't see them here, but Tracy must have a bead on them. So there we go.
I do. Chris, I've allowed you to talk if you want to unmute and make a statement.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to continue the meeting this evening. We really appreciate that. And I wanted to introduce myself. I'm actually the father of the owner. My name is Mike Stone. My daughter-in-law, Heather, and Chris bought this house back in 2014. The house was originally a 2-bedroom home, and we did remodel the kitchen and tried to clean up the front yard, do some landscaping, put a courtyard, so there are now 2 young girls have a place to play. And they've just ended up loving the area, loving the school district, and wanting to stay here to raise their kids at least until they're out of high school. And that's what started this desire to actually put the second story on. When we first started with Ingrid, who is our architect, I thought there would only be enough room to put 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom upstairs. And Heather has been pushing hard that she wanted 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms so that the girls and the master bedroom was all on the same level. And I feel Ingrid did a great job with that. It was, I know everybody has an opinion when it comes to the neighborhood, but the neighbors did support it, and we really appreciate that. So I'm going to turn over the rest of it to Ingrid, and if you did have any more questions for myself or the 2 owners, they are also here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for staying late for us this evening. And just wanted to talk a little bit about the design process and how we arrived at where we are. Mike and I first started talking about this, well, a couple years ago now, and he told me specifically that he didn't want the addition to look like it was just tacked on. And so we tried a few different iterations that none of us liked. And then eventually we just started thinking about how could we make this a bit more integrated and look as though it was part of the original building rather than just a stuck-on addition. So then that came with the idea of the larger Craftsman roof with the dormer. And I hope we've at least come close to accomplishing some of that, you know. It's a challenge with the square footage limitations and, you know, but I think we've done our best and hopefully the neighbors will like the finished product.
Okay. Who else amongst you would like to speak about the project?
Anybody else? No?
I think you guys have been here long enough tonight.
Yeah.
So unless there were, you know, questions that you had of us, I mean, I could go on talking about what a great family I have, but I don't think I need to do that tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask any of the commissioners, if you have a question, put your hand up. Otherwise, we'll then move on. So if you have a question. Dr. Bundy.
Yes, there are two reasons that homeowners in Mariner Cove raise their house. One is greater than 50% and they have to meet FEMA standards. And the other is that a number of the homes have settled differentially. So there is, you know, sometimes a significant slope, sometimes a relatively minimal slope. Is the base, is the threshold level on this house on 17?
Level, yeah.
So is that Ingrid speaking or is that
Sorry, that
Mike?
was, yes. The lot is basically flat. It slopes gently toward the street, but for the most part, it's flat and level.
Okay. Just my one comment would be that people that have remodeled on a house that has a slight tilt to it, it's very hard for the contractor to get it to come out right. But it sounds like you're lucky that the settlement has been even and hasn't caused the house to tilt. So lucky for you.
As we know, yeah.
No, it's okay because the engineer, it wouldn't be not the structural engineer, but the soils engineer. In his observation, he felt we were okay because that was a question that came up early on.
Okay, no more questions.
Phyllis, do you have any questions for the applicant? Yes.
More of a question for staff at this point because of Bob's question, what I've been wondering about this 50% threshold of FEMA's for raising the building. It sounds like it's the current addition, again, rated against what is what currently exists plus the addition, and not what the house was originally. And I'm just wondering, does that mean that somebody every 2 or 3 years did an addition to their home, even though it ends up being more than twice the size that it was to begin with, that 50% threshold is not met?
There's
I don't know if I stated it right, because FEMA's rules are so archaic.
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at, Phyllis. There's another rule is the 5-year rule. So you have to wait 5 years between edition number 1 and edition number 2, and then you don't have to add them together. So FEMA lets you spread out. So if you're willing to spread out and do, you know, $100,000 additions every 5 years, you can get around FEMA more or less. Most people don't. Most people don't want to do that every 5 years, so they'll bite the bullet and do a big one. It costs them $150.
Okay, fine. Thanks a lot, Phil.
Sure.
All right, Margaret, do you have any questions for the applicant? No, okay. You're muted. Mr. Rizzo, do you have any questions for these applicants?
Not this time.
Okay. All right, so then we're going to say that the next part of this will be to ask for public comment. Being that there's 12 participants, I don't know who the heck could be out there. But there is a possibility that we're going to have a public comment. So we'll open this for public comment and see if somebody wants to speak. Tracy, do you have anybody?
Thanks, Peter. I don't see any raised hands at this time, and we have no emails that have been received during this item.
Okay, so we are not going to have anyone participate in the public comment, so we will close the public comment section of this and take it back to us commissioners here. So there are 5 of us here, and I'll start with you, Ms. Metcalf, about making a commentary, Phyllis, about the project.
I like the project. I think the addition works well with the basic home, and I could make the findings and I would approve this addition.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Bundy.
Generally, I'd like to see the second-story addition set back from, both sides. I understand the reason that they chose to put this over the garage and not interfere with the remodel that created the cathedral ceilings in the kitchen and the living room. And it doesn't seem to impact the immediate neighbors who they obviously work very closely with to come up with a plan that everybody can accept. So I can make the findings for this.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Margaret.
I can make the findings. I don't see this as being a very controversial kind of addition. I would just say to the homeowners that I have a room above my garage, and every time you open that garage, it's noisy. So if you're putting bedrooms over the garage, you better not be opening your garage when someone's trying to sleep. But I can make the findings for this.
Okay. Jim Rizzo, what do you think about this project?
Well, I think they did a good job working with the community. When I drove out there, I thought that the neighbors in the back were the most impacted view-wise to Ring Mountain there. But once there's still a beautiful sight line to the ridge available for them to enjoy. It didn't seem like there was any style to any of the other second stories around the neighborhoods. It seemed like there was a kind of a myriad of different styles. So I didn't think that there was any specific character to the neighborhood that kind of needed to be adhered to. I definitely appreciate them working with the neighbors. I think they went above and beyond actually in making those windows high. I think even 5 feet, you wouldn't be able to really look down on somebody unless you were super tall. I've used this technique before with the big roof line and kind of popping out those dormers, and it really does. It reads nicely from the pedestrian viewpoint on the street. So sometimes in elevation, it looks like a huge mass. And I believe if this was seen in a perspective, it definitely would seem less of a visual impact than this elevation. So I too can move for the findings to approve this project.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. I felt that this project was designed to minimize the impact of the second story, and I think it fits in well. So I think that great effort has been gone to fit in the design program as necessary. to make these inhabitants have a decent life in this thing. So I think it's well done, and I would make the findings. So with that said, I'm going to ask for a motion on this. It is resolution number 2005, for anyone who wants to, if you can't quite find the electronic version of this.
Yeah, I can't find the electronic version. Can Tracy read that off to us and
I can
one of us put our name on it?
I can read it off if you like, Peter.
Yes, please.
So the application is application number PL 20190071. Design review application for a 769.5 square foot second level addition to an existing single family story home at 17 Tradewind Passage. Resolution number 20005.
And I'm sorry to jump in here, Phil, but the actual number, I think we're out of order a little bit on the resolution. So just for clarification, it's going to be 20-007. Because we actually had two resolutions that were not included in our log. I'm just looking now. So sorry about that, Phil.
Okay. 007.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Who first?
So, yeah, Bob, you would be the one to make the motion based on the reading from Mr. Boyle. So who will make the second?
I shall second it.
Okay. Thank you. And will you call the roll, Mr. Wolf?
We lose Mr. Wolf. I can do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, so let's go with Commissioner Bundy.
Yes.
Commissioner Bendel.
Yes.
Commissioner Rizzo.
Yes.
Vice Chair Metcalf.
Yes.
Chairman Chase.
Yes. So, Mr. Boyle, will you read the appeal rights, please?
I will. Follow an action by the Planning Commission at a public hearing or meeting. Any decision of the commission may be appealed to the town council within 10 calendar days. Appeal forms are available at the planning department and at town hall. A $300 filing fee is required.
Okay. Thank you. Please go forth and build your addition. The Stone family. All right, thank you. At this moment, 10:15, I would suggest that we adjourn unless somebody really wants to go through the notes and the various reports.
I move to adjourn.
I
Second, anybody?
I second.
Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, all of you. I appreciate the hard work and the diligence to stick in there tonight. All right.
Thanks, everyone. You too. I appreciate
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Tracy.
Good night. Stay safe.